capitalistic, because a part of 3/4 of Berlin is democratic. There's a democratic, heartbeat somewhere behind the Iron Curtain that Stalin wants to get rid of. He wants to turn communist. Right, so here are the ideas of containment. Like I said, just remember, containment would be to contain communism. All right, so you got the con and com. Any way you can try and remember that is great. All right, the Truman Doctrine was his plan to try and help any countries that are still trying to restore democracy or maintain democracy. Okay, and that would be by giving money to those different countries. All right, the Marshall Plan, we talked about that at the end of World War II. And then the president after Truman also is fighting against You're going to see every president right up until Ronald Reagan, right, in the late 80s, early 90s, is going to be trying to fight against or contain communism as best as possible. So the Eisenhower Doctrine, that's going to be more towards the Middle East, but the same idea. Right? The Allies also formed NATO, which is still around today, is really strong today. Okay, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The idea here is for mutual defense and collective security, meaning we are working together, we're joining together for our defense. We're not doing it as a aggressive thing, we're doing it for defensive purposes. And 6 years later, the Soviet Union, responds by doing the same thing. They formed their own military alliance, right, with other communist countries referred to as the Warsaw Pact. Right. Now, here's a map showing you the difference. All right, you can see the Iron Curtain is the black solid line going all the way through. That's the defining line between communism and capitalism. Now, you may notice that if you look in here, since the green is communist countries, that Yugoslavia is not behind, even though it's communist, it's not behind the Iron Curtain. And that's because they were actually an independent communist country, and they kind of played off both sides. Right? They looked to the Allies for help, and they promised, reforms or changes to make it more democratic. But they also maintained their sense of communism, which enabled them to have support of the Soviet Union. So that was kind of a hot spot here because both sides were trying to influence what goes on in Yugoslavia. All right? Pink are the NATO members, and the orange, the yellowish, the cream color. Those are countries that don't pick a side. You'll notice a lot of them are the same ones that were neutral during World War II. Once again, here's Switzerland not picking a side, right? But I just wanted you to see the Iron Curtain on a bigger map of Europe, showing you the different countries that are within NATO or the Warsaw Pact. All right, now we're going to kind of go back home, right? The Red Scare is going to come back. People are afraid of communism. So we have two spy trials where people were accused of spying for the Soviet Union, Alger Hiss and Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. Okay, Alger Hiss was accused of passing military information, and Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were actually executed, right, because they were passing secrets about nuclear weapons onto the Soviet Union. All right, and then the last thing we're going to look at here is because of this fear of communism, okay, people were worried about communist spies, infiltrating the government. So Truman is going to order background checks, loyalty checks to make sure people were not communist sympathizers, even though we have freedom of speech and different political parties. Okay, people really were trying to get rid of communism altogether. I mean, there were people in the United States who were communists and who wanted communism to exist, but obviously the vast majority was democratic. The Congress also gets involved by setting up the House Un-American Activities Committee. Right? They were essentially just on a witch hunt almost, searching for people who were suspected communists. Right? And this cartoon is kind of showing you the idea. Like the car symbolizes this committee, right? And they're driving through all these people, and they're saying that we're hunting communists. Right? One of the things we looked at in World War II on the home front was that, if you were accused of being a communist, it was a very dangerous thing because there was such a crazy fear of communism.